Rob, what is our third main topic today?
Well, our third main topic comes from Brian Freed, who says, "Hey, John and Rob, so Dune's Denis Villeneuve was doing an interview and revealed that he really pushed for shooting Dune Parts 1 and 2 back-to-back at the same time, but that Warner Brothers refused and made him shoot just one. Do you think this was a mistake on their part? Why would they show such a lack of confidence in the movie?" Well, John, I'm kind of two minds about this. Obviously, we have the great example of Lord of the Rings to show us that shooting 3 movies was not folly. It worked. I think Lord of the Rings made a lot of sense to do it that way. And I think Lord of the Rings has a story that lent itself. I think ultimately it was less of a risk because the story was a little bit, dare I say it, I don't want to offend any Middle-earth fans out there, but it was a simpler story to adapt than, say, something like Dune. We had a core group of 4 characters, the Hobbits. We had a clear destination, a simple thing to understand. They had to destroy the Ring of Power and the crack of Mount Doom. And it was a hero's journey, and it was easier to understand. So I think it made sense to shoot all those movies back to back. Dune is a little bit different, a different proposition. The storyline of a potential Messiah who shows up and leads people out of bondage would seem to be, it's a classical story. Sounds like it could be right out of the Bible or the Quran. And indeed, both of those things were inspirations for Dune. But it's also a heady science fiction story that does not have the same kind of wide appeal as something like, say, Middle-earth does. But that said, making half of Dune seems kind of weird to me because halfway through the story there's really no ending. And one of the criticisms that I've seen leveled at the film with the reviews, as much as people have said it's wonderful and transportive and a real experience at the movies, it has no ending. And I would have thought, because basically the situations and characters and people are essentially the same, why not shoot them both at the same time? Warner Brothers has done it before. They did it with The Matrix Reloaded, The Matrix Revolutions. They've done it with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I would have thought this movie in particular, being that it's shot on location and on stages and a lot of the same places are used, that this would have been a natural to shoot both parts at once. I don't know. I don't think it would have doubled the budget. I think it would have probably done effectively, added a third to the budget, maybe. I think it absolutely should have been done. Now, unfortunately, Hollywood's risk averse, dude. And I can understand why they didn't do it, because Dune is not a foregone proposition to be a great success. There's no indication that Dune's going to make $1 billion at the box office, or that it has the pop culture footprint that Lord of the Rings has, especially now. We have here, the playlist says, Denis Villeneuve talked about his plan to film both parts of Dune before releasing the first film, unfortunately, for unspecified reasons, though the cost of that sort of endeavor is likely the top culprit, which I totally agree with. WB didn't like that plan. I wanted at the beginning to do 2 parts simultaneously, Villeneuve said. For several reasons, it didn't happen, and I agreed to the challenge of making part 1 and then wait and see if the movie rings enough enthusiasm. He added, as I was doing the first part, I really put all of my passion into it. In the case, it would be only 1, but I'm optimistic. What do you think, John? 2 movies or 1?
Well, I mean, look, you bring up 2 really interesting examples, right? You bring up the example of Matrix, and they did Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions back to back. You bring up what was the other one? The Harry Potter ones, right? The difference between Matrix and Harry Potter and Dune was that Matrix and Harry Potter all did other films first that showed they were box office hits. There was already a first Matrix that they did shot as one movie, came out, made a lot of money, got a lot of pop cultural attention, and therefore they knew they could go in and do 2 and 3 back to back. With Harry Potter, it was a global phenomenon. So they already knew they could go in and make the last one back to back and it would be fine. Dune has not had that advantage. Dune doesn't have a track record of success like Matrix did, like Harry Potter did. So on the one hand, what would I have liked them to have done? Well, what I would have liked them to have done is shown some confidence in the movie and shot it back to back. Say, this is Dune. This is Denis Villeneuve. This is going to be great. We should shoot it back to back. We'll save probably like 15 to 20% money, which is equal to tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in savings. It would have been given us a nice flow. We would have been able to have a second movie out sooner. A lot of advantages. But I can understand their apprehension. When you're talking about dropping $170 million into a movie, or more, a movie, a property that has not traditionally done well, Rob, other than in its book format, but in its on-screen format, this is a property that has not traditionally done big bank business. On top of that, you're not really sure, with Denis Villeneuve taking a very high concept approach to this, you're not sure right now, how will the audience respond to a high sci-fi concept like Dune, with the way that Denis is going to do it? It's smarter than your average movie. I mean, so how are people going to respond to this? And so while I, as a fan, absolutely wish they had just taken the leap and done these two films back to back, while I want that, I got to tell you, Rob, I get it. I get why they didn't.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge financial risk. They haven't had a previous, like they didn't do a part one. Like for example, let's say for argument's sake, Denis Villeneuve had always planned Dune as 3 movies, which he hasn't. But let's say he always did. He always planned Dune as 3 movies. I could totally see Warner Brothers doing the first, and then if it did well, shooting 2 and 3 back to back, much like they did with Matrix. I could totally see that happening, but this is only going to be a 2-parter. So would I have wanted them to? Yes. Do I get why they didn't? Unfortunately, yes. Because right now, Rob, as much as Dune is my #1 most anticipated movie right now, the reality is I am very unsure about how this is going to do financially. I just don't know. Like, even if it wasn't for the great backstabbing betrayal of Warner Brothers and putting this thing out on HBO Max, which completely sabotages its chance of having any significant success at the box office. But even that aside, even if that didn't happen, I'm not 100% sure how well this is going to do. And with the same day and date release on HBO Max, Rob, I'm telling you right now, I don't think Dune is going to make as much as Shang-Chi did. I don't think it's definitely not going to make as much as on opening weekend. It's not going to make as much money as Black Widow did opening weekend, which is 80. I don't think it's going to make as much as Shang-Chi did on opening weekend, which is 75. I think it's going to have to come out and then get, like Shang-Chi, a really good, strong, positive word of mouth campaign going. I don't know. What are you thinking about it?
Well, what's really interesting is, Dune opens in Europe this week.
Yes, it does.
So we're going to have a month. I mean, Dune doesn't open in the United States till the 22nd of October. So we're going to have a significant understanding of what Dune is going to do at the box office we'll have over a month of box office around the rest of the world to see how it does. And I believe Dune is also approved to open in China, although I'm not sure when that happens. So we could be in a situation where if Dune catches on, and I think in a way it was a brilliant strategy because HBO Max is not around the rest of the world yet. So we have the rest of the world. And if the film catches on and becomes a hit, Warner Brothers could have a global hit on their hands before the movie even gets to America. And I think that's going to be really telling. And at least for Dune, of all these day and date movies, it does have a bit of an advantage. And I'm hoping that audiences around the world discover this movie. And if they do, by the time it gets here, hopefully the worldwide hype will be real and Dune will do very well. I mean, I'm dubious. Dune is not a story. I mean, while it does have action in it, it is a thoughtful, contemplative story. It's not your typical action fare. And really, I have heard that there are 3 movies to be made about the Paul Atreides story, and I've heard they wanted to do them. This Dune's called Dune Part 1, but I heard that they were internally discussing doing Dune, Dune Prophet, and then Dune Messiah, which is the second Dune book that closes off the Paul Atreides story. And I could see there being a Dune trilogy if this movie does really, really well, and if it does well on streaming on HBO Max. I'm sure they have a number in mind where it has to make a certain amount and then be seen a certain number of times on HBO Max, which will trigger them green lighting part 2. But I think we'll have a real sense of it before it even opens here, because we're going to see what numbers it does in Europe beginning in 2 days.
Yeah, now, look, I'm going to call it right now. This movie's going to get a Best Picture nomination. I'll call it right now because of the source material. And we know, and this is he might be the hottest director in the world. He might be the best director in the world right now. Certainly one of the hottest. Every movie he makes is just a practical masterpiece.
Yep.
And so I have no doubt this is going to be one of the best movies of the year. And I would put $100. I would put $100 right now, easy, that this will get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I mean, I haven't seen the film yet, so this is pure prognostication. This is just pure guesswork on my part. Obviously, I'm not saying it deserves it because I haven't seen it. I'm just guessing that with the pedigree of how great this story is, with the pedigree of how great this director is, with the pedigree of how greatly talented most of his cast are. I mean, you've got Timothée Chalamet, who, I think is going to be, he's not yet, but I think he's going to be the next Daniel Day-Lewis at some point. You just got a loaded cast. I just think this movie's going to be remarkable. But again, I just don't know that it's going to have that market appeal. Like Blade Runner 2049 is a fantastic movie, but it did not have market appeal. And look what happened to it. It just wasn't able to perform because, well, it's one of the worst marketing campaigns in history. So there's that. So they're going to have to really ramp it up. But then, Rob, again, the elephant in the room is going to be HBO. Warner Brothers has completely sabotaged any chances, whatever chances there were of this being a box office success. HBO sabotaged it because they're putting it on a day and date. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to do. But we'll see. Again, I think the main hope for this, Rob, like you were saying, this is going to all rely on word of mouth. It's got to be that people in Europe see it and love it. And then early audiences here see it and love it. And like what happened with Shang-Chi, people just talk and talk and talk about how great this movie is, if it is indeed that great, because I haven't seen it yet myself. And that may give it legs and that may push it over the top. But I'm just saying right now, Rob, I've got questions. I got big questions. I don't know how it's going to work out. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this notion that Denis Villeneuve actually originally wanted to shoot these films back to back? Do you think they should have let him do it? Do you think it was a dumb mistake not to let him do it? Are you like me where you kind of wish they did, but you understand why they didn't? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.